So I've talked before in a previous video about being a science fiction fan, but I don't think you have to be a science fiction fan to know how important Darth Vader was to the Star Wars story. I mean, what would Luke Skywalker have been without him? You don't have to be a comic book fan to know that what was Superman without Lex Luthor? What was Batman without the Joker? In the world of fiction, the hero is only as good as his villain. But does that necessarily have to work that way in real life? One thing I've noticed about the Trump administration is that they always have to have an enemy. Always has to have an enemy. They even use the term often, enemy within. Uh, I started noticing this, and it was before Donald Trump came along. I started noticing that the Republican Party in general started, talking about enemies here, which it's not uncommon for American politics to involve an enemy somewhere. But it wasn't until about 2008, 2009 that the enemy was here. The enemy was among us. It was us, turning American citizens against American citizens. But I noticed that the arch nemesis of the Trump administration is Barack Obama. I don't even want to mention this because I feel like it's just for distraction that his portrait was removed in favor of, Trump pumping his fist after his assassination attempt. Uh, you know, I shouldn't have even mentioned that because it was for distraction. He usually does those things to get people talking and, about things. There's something he doesn't want us talking about that we are talking about, so I'll do something or post something on social media that's so ridiculous and over the top that people will talk about that, and then I get to be the center of attention and blah blah blah. So, but yeah, they're nothing without an enemy. I noticed they've directed a lot of hatred towards the trans community. Now it's Trinde or Agua is the enemy. There's always an enemy, but what is the Trump administration without an enemy? They're nothing. They're nothing. They have nothing to offer except hatred. Hatred and fear. And, speaking of Star Wars, I think it was Yoda who said it best in The Empire Strikes Back. It all starts with fear, right? Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Could you sum up the Trump administration any better than that? Could you sum up MAGA any better than that? They get you afraid. They get you afraid of, I don't know, women being in men's bathroom or men being in women's bathrooms, men being in, women's sports, but, so that's the enemy there. It's always an enemy. And this goes way back, to Civil War era. That was the whole basis of the KKK, right? This savage other is going to come here and rape our women and do all and take our way of life away from us. What do they really have besides that? Nothing. I mean, now let me see. The enemy we have. The enemy is Canada. Oh yes, vicious Canada, evil Canada. We're supposed. They want you to hate them. Hate. We'll turn Greenland into an enemy. We'll turn Panama into an enemy. We'll turn Mexico into an enemy. Everybody but Russia, right? Everybody but Russia is the enemy. At one point Ukraine was the enemy. But yeah, they're nothing without that. And speaking of what they're nothing without, he's throwing a lot of weight around right now. But all of this power that he wants you to think he has, he doesn't have. That is not his own might and strength that he's throwing around. That is the might and strength of the United States. And he's got the reins of it for a short time. And of course, the Republican Party wants to do away with all checks and balances and totally give him that total power, and they want to make sure that he has it until the day he dies. And maybe even down the road, we can turn it into a monarchy where anybody with the name Trump can wield that power and turn the might and the strength of the United States into their own. But what is he? What was he before? What was he before he had the strength of the United States? He was just some little guy in a courtroom being charged with 34 felonies. And oh yeah, I see, I've seen before. You don't even know what those 34 charges were. Yeah, I can break it down real simple for you. Falsifying big business records 34 times. He was found guilty by a jury, but hey, let's put a criminal in the White House. Why not? Because he gave us enemies to fear and hate and loathe. You know, it's all a smoke screen, folks. He's nothing without his enemies. He's nothing without the strength of the U.S. to back him up. He's just some pathetic career grifter who has done nothing for this country. I had somebody ask me, well, what did you think about him in the 80s and the 90s? I guess the implication was that since I didn't despise him then the way I do now, then I shouldn't be saying anything terrible about him at all. Back then, he was just a clown, a joker. I barely paid any attention to him at all. He wasn't seeking power. He wasn't, maybe he had thoughts of that. He probably always had thoughts of that in his head, but he wasn't actively seeking it then. So I guess since a few years ago people didn't hate Elon Musk so much, I guess I really shouldn't really think too badly of him. Whatever. But yeah, he's nothing without his enemies. He's nothing without the strength of the U.S. behind him. He's nothing. He's nothing. I'm not going to quake in fear and tremble in his presence, and none of you should. None of you should think that he's anything special. The evangelicals never really thought anything about him. Now he's Lord God Almighty himself. Yeah, well, I'm just saying. Y'all have a good evening. Oh, don't forget to please like, share, comment, click on subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. All it does is give you notifications of future videos. I'm working on some ideas for some other videos. I'm going to start making these videos a little more detailed, go into things in a little bit more depth. It's just right now I've been trying to do time management to where I can get more videos up. I've pledged to myself that I'm going to do at least one every day, and so I've been working on doing just that. And so when you make that the focus, the content isn't as good as I would like it to be. But I'm going to work on that, and these things are going to start getting better. I'm finally getting one or two people to start watching them, but I want them to continue to watch them, so I'm going to make them a little better. Hopefully there'll be things that they want to share, boost me up in the algorithm a little bit. But y'all have a good evening. Bye.